All right, let's just dive straight into this explainer. Today we are looking at why the absolute most famous unsolved mystery in American aviation history suddenly has a brand new pulse. I mean, for over 50 years, the legend of D.B. Cooper has totally captivated the public. It spawned countless theories, weird suspects, and a whole lot of dead ends. But recently, something happened that completely shifts the landscape of this legendary cold case. It involves a dusty North Carolina barn, what experts call a 1 in a billion piece of evidence, and a really bizarre sequence of events from federal investigators.
So think about this for a second. In December of 2025, the FBI quietly handed a parachute back to a family in Virginia. There was zero press release, no public statement whatsoever, just a completely silent return of evidence. Now that would be a pretty strange thing to do with any random parachute, right? But it is a staggeringly strange thing to do with this specific one. Because 2 years prior to that, the FBI had swooped in and seized this exact parachute as possible evidence in the only unsolved commercial plane hijacking in American history.
But here is where the official response, or actually the complete lack of one, gets absolutely fascinating. The FBI spent 2 full years running exhaustive tests on this parachute rig. We're talking deep, rigorous forensic work. And when it was all said and done, they refused to say if it was actually connected to the D.B. Cooper case. An agent literally just told the family that the material was, quote, neither being credited nor discredited. They extracted whatever data they could, and they just gave it back. So we really have to ask, why all the secrecy?
To truly grasp why this 2025 parachute return is such a massive bombshell, we really need to rewind a bit and pace through the crazy, chaotic events of the early 1970s. It all kicks off in November 1971 with the original Cooper hijacking. Then, just 5 months later, in April 1972, we see a nearly identical copycat hijacking by a man named McCoy. By August 1974, McCoy is dead. And then, the trail goes basically totally silent, all the way until this sudden parachute return in December 2025. Before we really get into that 1972 copycat suspect, though, we have to establish the sheer scale of the original 1971 crime. In federal files, this case is known as NORJAC, short for Northwest Hijacking, and it's a big deal. It launched the absolute largest and longest manhunt in the Bureau's entire history. We're talking hundreds of suspects vetted, thousands of leads chased down. For decades, it was literally the ultimate ghost hunt.
Just imagine the scene. It's Thanksgiving Eve, 1971. A man calling himself Dan Cooper boards Northwest Orient Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle. He's wearing a sharp business suit, a black tie, and sunglasses. He casually orders a bourbon and soda, passes a note claiming he has a bomb, and demands $200,000 in cash along with 4 parachutes. And the crazy thing is, he gets both. He safely releases all 36 passengers in Seattle, then orders the crew back into the air, flying low and slow toward Mexico. Then, in the middle of a freezing rainstorm, he plunges into 35-degree midair over southwest Washington, stepping off the rear air stairs of that Boeing 727, wearing nothing but a business suit and loafers. He just vanishes into the dark. No body, no parachute. And for decades, the only physical trace of this entire crime ever found was exactly $5,800. That's it. In February 1980, an 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was digging a campfire pit in the sand on the banks of the Columbia River, and he unearthed 3 decaying packets of $20 bills. The serial numbers matched Cooper's ransom money perfectly, but the other $194,200, it has never surfaced.
So fast forward to 2016. With no new leads and the trail entirely cold, the FBI officially closes the active investigation. But, and this is a huge but, they explicitly left the door open just a crack. They put it on the record that if anyone ever found the actual missing money or the actual parachute used in the jump, they would take another look. That physical evidence was literally the only key left that could unlock the vault.
Now, let's jump back to 1972. Just 5 months after Cooper vanished into the night, the story essentially repeats itself. A man named Richard Floyd McCoy pulls off the exact same stunt over Utah. I mean, same method, same rear air stairs jump from a 727, same parachute demand. The key differences here, McCoy demanded $500,000, he actually survived the landing with the cash, and, well, he made a crucial mistake that got him captured within just 2 days. But McCoy wasn't just some random suspect. The guy was highly capable and incredibly dangerous. He was a decorated Green Beret, a Vietnam demolitions expert, a helicopter pilot, and, most critically, a highly skilled skydiver. Some FBI agents at the time were absolutely convinced they had caught D.B. Cooper. The problem was, the flight crew from the 1971 hijacking couldn't positively identify him.
And then, in a twist straight out of a Hollywood action movie, McCoy actually escaped federal prison in 1974 using a fake gun that he carved entirely out of a bar of soap. 3 months later, FBI agents tracked him down to Virginia Beach and killed him in a shootout. And the agent who fired those fatal shots, he stated years later that he always truly believed he had just killed D.B. Cooper. For years and years, the McCoy family stayed completely silent. But after his widow passed away in 2020, that silence finally broke. His children started talking to a retired airline pilot and amateur investigator named Dan Grider. In 2022, Grider was out searching an outbuilding on the family's old property in Cove City, North Carolina. And what he uncovered in that old, dusty barn completely turned the investigation upside down.
What he found was a military-style parachute harness and canopy. Grider actually calls it a 1 in a billion rig. Why? Well, because it had been hand-altered to convert a standard-issue Army chute into something usable for a civilian jump. And the modifications on this specific parachute matched, detail for detail, the exact hand alterations described by Earl Cossey. Cossey was the actual rigger who supplied 2 of the 4 parachutes handed to D.B. Cooper back in 1971. It was so remarkably specific that an FBI agent contacted Grider in 2024 to seize it.
And the FBI didn't just casually glance at this parachute, okay? They launched a rigorous forensic teardown. After seizing it, along with McCoy's skydiving logbook, which, by the way, notably showed 9 practice jumps right before the hijackings, they got straight to work. They swabbed the canvas for DNA. They analyzed the fabric's soil to find a mineral fingerprint that forensic geologists could trace to specific regions. They even brought in a specialist parachute rigger to examine those unique modifications. They spent 2 full years tearing into this thing.
Now, we really have to look at the stark contrast in how the FBI handled this compared to past evidence. Back in 2008, a different parachute was found in Washington state. The FBI tested it and definitively, publicly ruled it out within a perfectly reasonable window of time. But the 2025 parachute? They held it for 2 full years and then returned it without ever actually clearing it. Investigator Dan Grider heavily argues that this 2-year silence is effectively a confession by omission. His point is, the FBI had every reason to eliminate this parachute quickly if it didn't match, and they simply didn't do it.
But, okay, let's take a step back and look objectively at the messy, scientific reality here. According to what McCoy's son was told, out of the 23 genetic markers needed for a full DNA match, only about 7 usable markers remain on the necktie D.B. Cooper left behind on the plane. The sample is just incredibly badly degraded from decades of handling. Plus, as a forensic consultant noted, sitting for 50 years in a hot, humid North Carolina barn is practically the absolute worst-case scenario for preserving usable DNA on a piece of canvas. A definitive 100% genetic link might just be scientifically impossible at this point in time.
So when you lay out all the evidence side by side, you kind of hit this incredible stalemate. The case for McCoy is deeply, deeply compelling. You've got a hand-altered parachute matching the original rigger's specs, a logbook full of practice jumps, and his widow literally admitting before her death that they were actually in Vegas during the original jump, completely breaking his Thanksgiving alibi. But on the flip side, the case against him has some pretty undeniable roadblocks. Degraded DNA prevents a real scientific match. The FBI's own 1974 files ruled him out using eyewitnesses, and even McCoy's son admits that the Utah flight crew couldn't pick McCoy out of a lineup, despite him being caught just 2 days later.
Beyond the DNA swabs and the old FBI files, though, there is a very real, very heavy human element here. For McCoy's children, the FBI's inconclusive DNA result almost doesn't even matter anymore. They spent years reconciling their view of their father. They look back and see a struggling war veteran who came home to a hostile country and made a catastrophic decision under immense financial pressure. His daughter Shantae shared a really poignant thought. She said, "At his core, my father was a good man, one who under any other circumstances would be admired for his heroism." They have made peace with the answer they believe to be true.
So, I really want to leave you pondering this final thought today. Is the FBI's 2-year silence a quiet confession by omission? Or is it simply the frustrating end of the line for degraded 50-year-old evidence? Officially speaking, D.B. Cooper remains entirely unsolved. The FBI has never explicitly named a single suspect. But for the first time in over half a century, we have a name, a matching parachute, a documented pattern, and an agency that somehow couldn't bring itself to just say no. It's an incredible realization that this legendary cold case suddenly has a heartbeat all over again. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the silence.